Everything was sort of like a blue-gray tone, and what I saw was a humanoid type form with an enlarged head, enlarged eyes, but not like as large as like you see in movies, standing at the passenger window, staring at me.
Yeah.
At me, like down at me, like I looked up and made eye contact.
My name is Jessica Blunt, and I would love to know what I was exposed to that deteriorated my health. Nobody's been able to help me. In 2019, I was with my boys, and we were headed to the movies. We're heading south. It was a Sunday in April. It was probably about 3:30 in the afternoon. I started to notice something up ahead of me. I saw this flash of light, and as I watched, I saw a large bubble, and I told my son, please turn on a video for me because I'm seeing something. I don't know what this is.
It wasn't going as fast as like that plane that just passed. Right there, I see it again. I see it, I see it. Oh my gosh. You guys, I might have to pull over. Shoot, this is freaking me out. That was not a plane.
It was at that time I was struggling to articulate words. I was starting to stutter. I was shaking, and I was really weak. I was trying to process all of this, and sorry. I mean, my whole body was just, it hurt so bad, like all my muscles, everything was so tight, and I was shaking. It was like convulsion shaking. And I had discovered that I had some severe radiation burns. When I was able to get an appointment with my doctor, because of the kind of symptoms that I had, he had some concerns, so he sent me for blood work. The blood work came back, and my immune system had shown an elevated marker of an immune system anomaly, but they didn't know what was wrong. Since my initial experience, I saw those same crafts almost every other day. So I do work now to try and document when I have some of these sightings, because I feel these crafts can change your chemical makeup.
Well, thank you for sharing.
It was terrifying.
We have the medical reports that you have shared. We have the video evidence that you have shared. And Chrissy has analyzed this material with a team of researchers.
Jessica has submitted the 9-minute video clip she recorded in 2019, as well as her medical report and photos of her injuries.
Well, you've gathered a great deal of information, and I'm eager to hear about the results.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So the first thing I do when I'm researching these types of cases, I look at satellites and rocket launches that correlate with your date, time, and location.
In the US, there are multiple databases that track the coordinates of objects orbiting the Earth. But, according to analysts, there were no satellites or rockets in the skies over Vernal, Utah at the time of Jessica's encounter.
Watching the video and hearing your testimony, you were looking south, right?
Correct.
Right. When we cross-checked date, time, and location, we did find flight data that showed 2 flights within view, but they were 31,000 feet above to the east. So whatever you were seeing was not a plane.
That is, well, it's good to know to have that.
I also then cross-referenced the date, time, and location with multiple UFO databases. And they showed no reports at the time of your experience.
Wow.
Chrissy's team also examined Jessica's photos and medical records, but were unable to draw any definitive conclusions as to the cause of her symptoms. While Chrissy's team was unable to identify the cause of Jessica's medical issues, they did uncover reports of similar injuries in declassified Pentagon documents. The research stated that witnesses who came into contact with UFOs, such as military personnel and Navy pilots, suffered physical injuries, including radiation burns, paralysis, and neurological damage.
Well, Jessica, when I evaluate these situations, I take into account the presence of evidence, the credibility of the witness, the experiencer. You know, as far as your credibility as a witness, I think it ranks very, very high.
Thank you.
You are a mom, you are a teacher, you are well known in your community. You have a lot to lose if people see you stepping forward and sounding like a wingnut. I recognize of all the evidence pooled together, there's no question that you experienced a UFO and suffered radiation burns and various forms of physical and neurological trauma with encountering unidentified aerial phenomena.
Thank you for all that you guys have done to look into this. I really appreciate it. It's just something that has profoundly affected my life. I am grateful for your hard work. I'm grateful for your time. I'm gonna take this information and roll with it. Thank you so much. Thank you, you as well.
Thank you so much. Really
Have
appreciate
a good one,
it.
guys.
Thank you.
See ya. This experience has been traumatic, and having the validation that I received today helps me to be able to move forward, knowing that this experience happened.
I gotta hand it to you on this one. You were throwing many, many data balls to juggle.
Yeah, I feel for her because it's never nice to not know and be wondering about your health and where that might go in the future.
Now we're getting down to business.
Yeah, it's been a lot, I know.
And we're not done.
Exactly.
It is time to let yourself be heard and share your story so that you can have that validation for yourself, because it's that trauma that occurs from having an experience like this.
My name is William Carabal. I live in Los Angeles, California.
My name is Erin Stack, and what I can say about that night is that language does not possess the words for what we experienced.
I like to speculate on what's going on. I have to know what happened that night. It was January 2014. We were driving back from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. It was really late. We'd been driving for a couple hours. I couldn't stay awake, and so it had to have been about midnight by the time that we pulled over.
I was asleep in the passenger seat, and I remember sort of coming to, like waking up, and the car being off, and we were stopped and pulled off the road into the desert. And I immediately had a really uneasy feeling, like a bad feeling. And that's when a sound and a vibration. It was a very low, metallic type of hum, like descended around us and the car. And in that moment, I saw like the car surrounded by this white, blue light.
There was just this like white light, and it felt like it was moving through me, and it was all just vibration, and I could feel every type of feeling that you don't want to feel: fear, regret, suspicion, hate, and unwelcomeness.
Everything was sort of like a blue-gray tone, and what I saw was a humanoid type form with an enlarged head, enlarged eyes, but not like as large as like you see in movies, standing at the passenger window, staring at me.
Yeah.
At me, like down at me, like I looked up and made eye contact. And then I snapped, "Get us out of here right now." The sound stopped. It just was gone. And when it went, I said, "What was that?" And as he turned the key to start the car, I remember you saying, "I don't know, but it sounded like a UFO." Started the car and we were out of there. We got back to Los Angeles, but I feel like we had like an aversion of talking about it, and our relationship didn't last much longer after that.
We remained friends, you know, but never really talked about it again. There was never a good time to bring it up, and now I'm realizing that I've never told anyone this. I saw the outline that you're talking about. Like, I saw that silhouette, and I just thought I was dreaming. And you may not realize, we were there for like an hour.
Well, that's why I felt like there was an hour like lost in this situation, because by the time we got home, the times didn't match.
If it had just been me, it would have been so easy to write off as like, yeah, that was definitely a dream. Looking back on it, it's like, that happened, you know?
Yeah.
You think he may have been abducted?
It would make perfect sense to me if we found out there was more evidence to support what we experienced that night, because it was so real and we both vividly remember it in the same way.
What are you hoping that we can provide for you?
I'd be super interested to learn if these experiences are something that like are congruent with what other people have gone through.
And you will?
And I'm more interested in hearing how they describe it and like the details of, you know, not just what they saw, but how they felt. And to make sure people like myself don't feel isolated, I guess.
Of course. Yeah. It's notable that this experience happened to both of you. And I'm thinking first and foremost of the Barney and Betty Hill abduction in 1961, probably the most famous. Betty and Barney Hill were a New Hampshire couple who in fall 1961 reported being abducted by aliens from their car at night.
On Monday, the couple claims they were driving along a highway in New Hampshire's White Mountains when they heard a beeping sound. The next thing they remembered was driving along the same road, but 2 hours had passed, and they woke up 35 miles from the spot where they had blanked out.
Barney took the binoculars, and he was going to get out of the car, and he's going to identify this object. And at this point, he could see human-like figures standing in the window looking down at him.
And it was only through hypno-regression therapy that Betty and Barney were able to bring forth really compelling and terrifying testimony that set the template for abduction encounters in the 20th and 21st centuries. We also have the Travis Walton case. He and his colleagues, foresters, disappeared 1975, and the Allagash abductions of 1976, all of which involved multiple people, and all of which, and listen very carefully to this, all of which involved people who, when returning to ordinary consciousness, did not really remember what happened. Almost like a dream is that you only dimly remember, and it was only thereafter that they began to recall bits and pieces of what had occurred, in many cases through regression therapy. But it's quite remarkable that it's not just one person saying, well, gee, this is what happened to me. It's groups of people, it's missing time, it's very murky memories that later, and only later, became clear.
And it's these physical descriptions of the beings too, how that all seems to line up, I guess.
Of course. Well, let me tell you what we're gonna try to accomplish here today. We have your accounts, your testimony, your materials. This is something that Chrissy has looked over and examined, and our wish is to really provide you with something as close to conclusive as we're able to.
Aaron and William submitted their individual accounts of their experience, along with the date, time, and location of the encounter. However, they do not have photo or video evidence of the event, which makes Chrissy's analysis challenging.
So what we end up doing is we cross-reference time, date, and location with multiple UFO databases to see if there's any other UFO sightings in that region. But there were no other UFO sightings in your area. So then what we do is we looked at air traffic patterns, satellites, and rocket launch data that we cross-check with the date, time, and location. And it showed no records of any air traffic at that time. Did you ever think that it was dreaming? Some scientists and some psychologists would say that this is dreaming, right? You can move your bodies, both of you can move your bodies. It wasn't any form of sleep paralysis.
No, it didn't feel like one of those dreams.
I think the opposite.
It did not.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It was like the opposite of, because there's zero control, and it was just total confusion and sadness. When you dream, you see stuff. You don't just dream of like white fog that's filled with negative emotions. You know, like that's not a thing. And so that was accompanied by the vibrations, the
sound.
Yeah.
So that hum is very, very consistent. Most people that said they've had any type of close encounter, you hear that a lot. But I don't have any hard science, right, that I can say like exactly this is what it is. I just unfortunately don't.
In order to reach my conclusion, I look at a variety of factors. It's notable that this experience happened to both of you, and that does compare with other abduction experiences. Now, you guys had a shared experience, but there are things you've learned more recently, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, just hearing her detailed account of it has kind of brought back some memories and also enlightened me on stuff that I didn't know about. The split between when I tell her to go to sleep, she rolls over and sees it. In that moment, that's when I thought we'd both just like took a nap or something and went to sleep. But for her, it was just an instant. And so that's the part that was so weird because a bunch of time passed while we were there. Like she remembers it being this quick thing. And for me, it felt more like a few minutes when really it was more like an hour.
It had to have been at least an hour. It
was really just, you know, kind of that what happened during that time type of feeling.
You know, time slips or missing time, look, it can happen as mental gaps. You fall asleep, you're hypnotized, you're in a state of hypnagogia, that very relaxed state between sleep and awakening. But you looked at the clock, you know the drive, it's not the first time you've done it, you're familiar with the area, and you both said to yourselves, separately and together, we're missing an hour here, and there's no mistake about that. You guys join a lineage of reports that involve more than one person, and all of which, and listen very carefully to this, all of which involved people who, when returning to ordinary consciousness, did not really remember what happened, almost like a dream is that you only dimly remember. Whenever we're considering any experience, we look for corroboration. I also look at the credibility of the witnesses. You've also, frankly, put your own reputations on the line. You've stepped up with a narrative that is corroborated, at least among the two of you. It's missing time. It's very murky memories that does compare with other abduction experiences. It's quite remarkable, and I think it is fair and just to say you've had an abduction experience.
The takeaway for me, at least, is that like it didn't feel like, oh, this like ruined my life. I hear a lot of abductees talking about how their life just was totally ruined. That's sort of one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it too, is to like let people know it's not bad necessarily. It can be bad for sure. But I think that a lot of the bad experiences people had is because they were just clouded by fear, preventing them from seeing the possibilities of these interactions.
We all go through things in life that we would not want to go through again, but looking back, we realize those are the very experiences that have refined us, and I think that's what happened to you two. And I thank you so much.
Thank
it's been
you.
a pleasure
Nice
to
to meet
exchange
you.
with you. Thank you.
The thought of abduction, something that I've been trying to deny, I guess, for a while. Hearing what they had to say, it's sort of like they've opened up Pandora's box in terms of how I perceive the situation and all the things that it implies about us and the world and the unknown.
It's not uncommon that it will take abductees years to come to terms with even the details of their experience. I'd like to think that we opened up new doors for him. Well, I wish there were physical evidence for you to look at and consider. What we have is testimony from two credible, solid-seeming individuals.
Yeah.
It was really interesting that so many other people have had almost the exact same experiences that we have. This validation lets me know that I'm not alone. It lets me know that I'm not crazy. This isn't weird. This is a thing we can talk about openly, and it's okay and it's safe. I think that I know enough to know that I know nothing, and I will always be searching. I will always be seeking. I will always be learning more.